Hello there. At the moment I'm continuing my look at the wines from Domaine Anne Gros and Jean-Paul Tollot. So this is a Minervois, this is a Les Fontanilles is the cuvee, and it's 2020 vintage. So between 2006 2008 I've seen different dates on this. Anne and Jean-Paul, who are husband and wife, came to Minervois, bought and have been renewing, resurrecting a domain in Cazelles in the Cazelles region in the northeast of Minervois. Some of the best vineyard areas of Minervois. Now, Les Fontanilles is not labelled as Cazelles, which is where their domain is based, so I'm assuming it's from outside that area. They specifically say it's a cuvee name, but it relates to 3 hectares of vines with a northwestern exposure and quite a sort of complex set of exposures. 4 grape varieties planted there: Syrah, Grenache, Carignan and Cinsault. They don't give an indication of the proportion in which they're planted or the proportion in which they go into the blend. They do, however, say that there's a variety of soils. There's marl, there's sandstone, there's limestone, chalk. So a variety of soils there, but generally quite friable. And these plots of vines are interspersed between areas of pine trees, and there's lots of scrub, sort of wild thyme and rosemary around, the typical garrigue of this area. The wines are made, I would assume, in tank. They don't say anything else, but you know, relatively traditionally. The fruit is hand-picked. The vines are old vines, so they say varying in age between 22 and 50 years of age. So good mature vines. So hopefully some decent concentrated fruit there. The hand-picked fruit is destemmed, and then they also say that aging goes on 50% in barrel and 50% in stainless steel tank. So some of that to soften tannins, so presumably the more tannic varieties such as the Carignan, the Syrah, whereas the softer, fruitier Grenache is probably what goes into tank to keep its freshness. So I'm looking for a wine that's going to be a really good example, but quite a typical Minervois here. So having a look at it, it's got a nice depth and intensity of colour. Its pigmentation is dark, it holds its colour quite well to the rim. I can just see through it, it's not quite opaque. But yes, maybe there's a slight purple nature to the rim. It does seem to be throwing tears fairly readily. The alcohol on that is 14.5%, so that would make sense for that. So let's see what the aromas are like. The aromas, first of all, have a sort of a slightly meaty and milky touch. They're not bursting instantly with fruit, though there is sort of a red plum through to a darker black plum damson note behind it, and that has a nice freshness. So let's taste. That's absolutely delicious. It's good rich fruit with good fresh acidity. So a sort of a damson bullace, dark black plum sort of note, supported by some fresher red plum and almost a sort of a fresh leafy touch behind that on the palate. And there are slight oaky touches, there's a peppery touch, slight notes of cedar, all really nicely in together. The wine has grip and structure. There is some quite fine tannin there in the sort of the middle of the palate, although in general there's a sort of a velvety smoothness to the wine. the alcohol's adding some richness, and that's, I think, the sort of slight warmth of the alcohol there is helping the peppery notes to come out. It's helping the cedary notes to show a slightly more exotic spice. And there's this sort of richness. I suppose there's almost a sort of slight touch of anise and licorice, and it sort of creating a core there. It's not a very dense wine, to be honest. It's medium to full bodied. The alcohol's giving it some weight and warmth, but it's not dense, rich and thick as some of the wines from this estate can be. Some of the old vine, Carignan, for instance. But at the same time, you know, there is good depth and intensity, and I think that would go really nicely with you know, fatty meats, that sort of thing. And I think the structure gives it the ability to age for 4 or 5 years, which I think it'll do so spectacularly because there's such a good concentration of fruit there. But at the same time, it's actually quite approachable now. I suppose the aging of some of the wine in stainless steel is keeping that freshness, and it's making it approachable, and it's stopping the tannins from being too tight and too taut on the mid palate there. So yes, that was Les Fontanilles Minervois from Anne Gros and Jean-Paul Tollot. Actually, I mean, the pricing will be in a link below to our website, so you can see what the price is and what the availability is in your local market. But I actually think it's not the cheapest Minervois around by any means, but I think that's a good example of how Minervois from really old vines and very well made can taste. And I would highly recommend you have a go at that if you get the opportunity. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you find these videos interesting. Do please tell your friends, like and share them. The videos. Do also sort of leave your comments in the notes. I'd love to hear what you think about these wines and others like them. However, whatever you do, it'd be really nice if we could see you again at another tasting license soon. So I hope you'll be able to make the time. Bye now.